Welcome back to the AI Ripple Effect. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Rohan Shah, the founder and CEO of Conduit Commerce. And Rohan is also a Forbes 30 under 30 in retail and e-commerce and a serial entrepreneur and innovator. Rohan, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Jonny.
Good. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. So why don't we start by you telling us a little bit more about yourself and your background, and then we'd love to hear more about why you started Conduit and what sets you apart from other e-commerce platforms out there.
Yeah, happy to. So quick background on myself. I studied computer science and finance at Penn. Built a company while I was there. It's called Slice Capital. It's like a B2B2C fintech company. Ultimately ended up selling that to a larger player in the space. And had an angel investor who was at McKinsey, and he led the retail tech practice at McKinsey. Brought me under his wing after all of this stuff was settled. McKinsey was my first entrance into understanding the lay of the land in terms of the CPG economy, everything from upstream supply chain type stuff all the way to downstream, marketing tech and everything in between. And fell in love with the space, realized that it's the literal backbone of the economy and everything that you and I interact with on a day-to-day basis. Tremendous opportunity to make a massive dent in a pretty antiquated space. Anyway, did some time at McKinsey, moved over to the world of e-commerce, elevate brands, help them scale from, I was employee number 5 to like 300 plus by the time that we acquired, to eventually, iterating on different ideas at the intersection of commerce and logistics while I was at Human Capital, leading early stage investing in New York. So my co-founder and I kind of landed on the thesis for what we're now building towards the end of 2022. And essentially, like the high level of this is a lot of the data that is being moved from point A to point B in the supply chain in today's world is being done through EDI, electronic data interchange, which is like one of the most antiquated flat file protocols that you can imagine. It was concocted in like the 70s, really just hasn't made any strides since. And so we figured that number one, that's a huge problem because there's no real-time data sync. Oftentimes folks are overselling products that they don't have. Folks are under ordering relative to inventory that may exist. It's just like out of sync data makes for a tremendously inefficient system and an incredibly inefficient downstream economy as well. That was one thing. Second thing was we realized that a lot of these large scale distributors and suppliers were, especially in a post-COVID world, they were transitioning their physical logistics to be able to support what's called loose pick, pack, ship. So they were adding a lot of these like value-added services to be able to essentially supply products directly to end consumers without needing to go through this process of offloading pallets to retailers, having retailers break down the pallets into cases, into individual units, and then eventually having the retailers send products to customers. A lot of these large scale suppliers, whether you're talking about brands or whether you're talking about distributors, they were taking on this part of the value chain. And so we figured that, there's a lot of value to be had just by tapping into these value added services and making these value added services available downstream in the supply chain. And then, as we got deeper and deeper into it, we realized that, a lot of the ways that, downstream retail partners are ultimately procuring from, their supply partners, it's very antiquated. A lot of it is being done via email or phone call. Spreadsheets are being sent back and forth between different parties just to be able to understand simple things, on-hand inventory. And so we figured that at the crux of all of this, a lot of this can be simplified by basically consolidating all of the data that encompasses what inventory exists where in one central data layer, and then making it as easy as possible for all of the trading partners who interact with, any of these suppliers to be able to tap into that data in real time via the workflows that they're used to. In some of these cases, it's, as simple as just displaying this on-hand inventory in like a wholesale dashboard and making it really easy for retailers to be able to do things like placing holds on inventory and ordering samples and placing even made to order purchases with their suppliers via, wholesale channels. But then in other cases, we also realized that once we have access to this data in real time, there's a lot of value in being able to support all of these downstream retailers who may not want to take on all of the inventory risk that would otherwise exist in procuring the goods. But they have a lot of eyeballs who are looking at their digital presence, and with the help of not just AI, but like the internet, right? Taking a step back, they essentially have seemingly infinite real estate. They're no longer limited by the physical brick and mortar real estate or physical brick and mortar shelf space of being able to place products on shelves in order to make sales. Now they can sell products online. Half of our business is focused on just enabling dropship, but dropship of like really high quality branded licensed goods that already exist in the US and that can get to a customer's doorstep in 2, 3, 4 days. And then the other half of the business is helping a lot of these retailers basically place large bulk purchase orders for wholesale purchases without needing to, do things again, exchanging emails or phone calls or spreadsheets. And so like the high level of it is a lot of this data that exists is stuck in these really antiquated systems like ERPs and order management systems and warehouse management systems. So step one, we do deep integrations into these antiquated systems. We ingest all of that data, we normalize it, and then we make it as easy as possible for any trading partner or any source of demand to be able to tap into that source of supply in a very like predictable manner. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it kind of leads into the question I was going to ask you is sort of in relation to some of the channels out there. So as e-commerce and the social shopping platforms kind of explode, how are you seeing sort of the wholesale distributors and manufacturers keeping it up with that kind of, with the new digital channels that are out there?
For sure. Yeah. So I don't think it's actually just the social commerce platforms like TikTok Shop and some of these other live stream shopping platforms. I think it's even platforms like ChatGPT and Perplexity and some of these other like chatbots that have really made inroads into the digital purchase journey. Now folks are relying less on things like influencer marketing and things like SEO and paid ads. And they're relying more on some of these hyper targeted signals to make purchase decisions. And so you can imagine that step one is, putting these signals in front of consumers. But step two is the consumers actually being able to make that purchase once they decide that, okay, like whatever signals I've been fed are adequate enough for me to make this purchasing decision. So at that point in the purchasing decision, the consumer doesn't really care where the inventory comes from. All they care about is the fact that they get the product on time in the condition that they expect. And that's about it. And then there's some level of post-purchase care. Whether that product comes from, Shopify or a TikTok Shop or Amazon or a Walmart or Target or straight from the distributor or the supplier, the consumer truly does not care. They just want their product in the condition they expect and on time, and ideally as cheap as possible in the most efficient way possible. And so that's why a lot of these large scale suppliers like wholesale distributors and other suppliers are seeking or are moving towards like these newer methods of acquiring customers, because the retailer in some of these verticals is actually getting a little bit disintermediated.
So AI and machine learning is sort of helping suppliers react faster to demand signals and inventory changes as well, you'd say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. How far are they along that journey, right? I mean, it's an education thing. It's about the skills.
I think it's very early days, and I think retailers are going to stick around for a very long time. Retailers, in many cases, are not even going to. They're going to be around forever because of the whole experiential retail idea, where people want to go in, they want to touch, they want to feel, they want to try products before actually buying. But I do think that in terms of getting buying signals to make sure that the upstream suppliers are procuring the right goods and producing the right goods at the right time, that is something that I think over the next couple of years, we're going to see tremendous strides in increasing the fidelity of the data that these upstream suppliers are getting. But I still think we're very early days. So I think step one is you increase the fidelity of the data that the upstream suppliers are getting in terms of downstream demand signals. And then step two, you make it as easy as possible for the downstream demand sources to be able to procure and actually ultimately sell these products to the end consumers.
In relation to that, how do you balance when you're working with clients, introducing new cutting edge technology with what has traditionally been quite a relationship driven? So how do you balance bringing in specifically that data led approach into the sort of balancing that with the human touch in terms of customers and also internal teams as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you have to realize that companies are run by humans, and humans are, although they're very adaptable, in many cases, especially in the world that that we're talking about, the world of logistics and supply chain and commerce, it's run by folks who are not very tech forward. So the name of the game that we play is we want to make it as easy as possible for folks to have the information that they need without needing to change any of their workflows. They're very happy with the tools and systems and standard operating procedures that that they're undergoing on a day-by-day basis. The only thing that they're not happy about is the fidelity of the data. And so that's why we do these deep integrations into all these systems so that we can easily ingest the data from wherever it already lives, but then also flow through the data in a very clean, predictable manner into the systems and the workflows that they're already operating in. So whether that's email, whether that's some sort of like warehouse management system, whether that's an order management system, we like to have the data exist where it already is being ingested by a human, but we want to make sure that the data that they're ingesting is correct.
I guess that's, I was going to ask you to take us back to how you founded Conduit and the problem that you and your co-founder were obsessed with. And I guess you just nailed it, right? Was that how you got into business?
Yeah, I mean that's basically it. So the high level of it is we realized that our initial product was literally just a connector between these ERP systems and Shopify stores that were trying to drop ship the inventory that the suppliers had. And we realized that there was no clean data integration layer between Shopify and some of these major ERPs. And so that's where we started out, because we were getting all these orders on a day-by-day basis into Shopify, but then there's no easy way for us to feed those customer and order data over to basically the 3PL or the distributor that was actually doing the loose pick, pack, ship. And then once those products were actually sent out to the customers, there's no easy way for us to pipe that fulfillment information back into the Shopify store, so customers knew, number one, that their product was shipped, and number two, when they should expect it. And I think that's what Amazon, like the gold standard, that's what they get really. They have a really, really beautifully vertically integrated system where they know exactly where every product is at any given time, because it's all within their four walls, at least within the FBA ecosystem. Number two, they communicate with their customers extremely well. And number three, they've also gotten really good at predicting within a high degree of certainty when that product will reach the customer's doorstep, so that you're managing expectations on a day by day, minute to minute basis. And so we want to help other retailers, other value added suppliers, one stop distributors, basically replicate those pieces of the pie, because there's nothing that novel about what Amazon's doing from an ops standpoint. From the ops standpoint, basically every other supplier and every other retailer is, doing the same thing. The only difference between Amazon and some of these more segmented supply chain flows is that the data fidelity across each part of the supply chain in Amazon is crystal clear. But that's not really the case when it's a bit more fragmented. And so that's what we're trying to help with.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I know you just recently come out of stealth mode and acquired Wally. What was the strategic thinking behind that move, and how does that kind of accelerate your game plan?
Yeah, so the Wally team is tremendously talented. They've built, I think, one of the most powerful TikTok shop integration layers that's in the market. And so we're really grateful to have them in our corner. What we've realized is, especially in working with a lot of these large scale suppliers, but also a lot of these retailers, is social commerce is a big chunk of the future. And folks need to be able to tap into this asset light inventory when selling products via these social commerce channels. Right now, it's a pretty hairy supply chain in terms of getting samples to influencers in order for them to create videos about the products and generate buzz and ultimately sales. But then also like getting products out to customers. I've seen in many instances some of the largest TikTok shop farms, content farms, they literally do their own fulfillment from within the same building that they are filming the content, if that makes sense. And the reason for that is because, again, like as these orders are coming in, they want to have a high degree of fidelity and a high degree of conviction that when they make these sales via these, live feeds, that the customers that they're selling will actually get the products in time. And so they say, if I can't depend on a 3PL fulfilling the way that I expect them to, because I'm gonna have to send them flat files and follow up with them, I'm just gonna take the matters into my own hands. And so I understand why they did this, but that's not the most efficient way to do these things. I believe firmly that society operates at full capacity when people are hyper specialized and doubling down on their strengths as opposed to getting spread thin and trying to do a little bit of everything. In an ideal world, these engagement farms or whatever you want to call it, the folks who are actually creating the content for like TikTok Shop and some of these other live stream shopping channels, they should just be hyper focused on, creating really high quality content and basically making sales and then maybe servicing the customers downstream as well. But that's it. When it comes to like fulfillment and all of the logistics, we have some really excellent people who have built their careers on logistics and operations and fulfilling products and procuring the right products over the last literally 100+ years. And many of these people would love to be able to supply products to the customers that these folks are selling to, but there's no easy way to connect these sources of supply with these sources of demand. And that's where we come in, and that's where the Wally team comes in. We want to make it really easy for these influencers to be able to get samples and then make it really easy for them to fulfill the orders that are coming in. And ideally, again, name of the game is doing everything via the tooling that you already expect. So it's all being done via TikTok Shop. If they have a Shopify website, then all of that data is also being piped into Shopify so they can manage everything from a single source of truth. And then even within the warehouse within the warehouses that are fulfilling the products, all of that order data and customer data is getting piped right into the warehouse management system. The folks on the floor, the warehouse workers, they don't have to change any of their operational workers, whether the order is coming in from TikTok or Shopify or natively. They just have to go to their bin location and pull it off the shelf, pack it into a box, and then ship it out.
Yeah. Now I know you've also hooked some great investors. And what do you think attracted that quite diverse group of venture firms?
Again, super grateful to have them in our corner. I think ultimately the space is just enormous. Distributors are trading between wholesale plus dropship channels. They're trading something like 10, 12 trillion plus dollars in goods on an annual basis. So the wholesale industry is absolutely enormous. It's like a third of GDP. And there just aren't many folks who are very focused on solving pain points for these guys. I kind of feel bad because when you think about venture-backed companies, 90% of them are building for other tech bros, and they're making it more efficient for a vertical SaaS to stand up and whatever it is. I think this is a very overlooked industry that doesn't get the attention that it deserves, especially from an impact in dollars and cents standpoint. So I think TAM is enormous. I think our team is especially well equipped to kick a bit of a dent. We have some absolute pillars from a product standpoint, hailing from the likes of Google to other really large commerce infrastructure companies like Shopify, et cetera, et cetera. And then even on the business side, my co-founder spent a decade plus in the world of wholesale distribution. I spent quite a bit of time in retail tech, e-commerce. So I think we have we're not vets by any means, but I think we have a certain degree of insight into how this world works. But I also think that there's some upside to being a bit naive, where you can look at a space that's been developed over decades and centuries and take a really fresh approach to solving some really very challenges, which to a vet may honestly seem insurpassable. Given that it is the way that it is, but I think some level of naivety is also probably a good thing.
Great. And what's on your roadmap for the next 12 months? I know you're a busy guy, Rohan.
Yes, so we're hyper focused on, servicing folks in, for a few of our core verticals from, cosmetics to optics to, furniture, flooring, appliances, musical instruments, etc. And specifically what we're doing is, we've built out this engine to make it really easy for some of these more antiquated retailers where, 100% of their revenue is attributed to like brick and mortar face-to-face sales. We've made it really easy for these folks to, spin up websites, pipe in asset-light inventory from all the suppliers that they already do work with. And then we've also built out this like AI marketing engine. So we want to basically make it really easy for these independent retailers to essentially procure goods more efficiently from the suppliers that they already work with, and ultimately increase sell-through at the base by being able to sell to consumers via a new channel other than just this like brick and mortar channel.
And it leads us to what is the last question, which is inevitably about AI. And on a scale of 1 to 10, Rohan, how confident are you that AI is going to create measurable value for Conduit and your clients in the next 12 months, but then a bit further down the line in 5 years from now?
I think there's no doubt we're already seeing, insane values, 100,000 out of 10. Like this is definitely, it's going to be a really interesting, decade plus ahead of us. And I'm excited to kind of, consolidate the world's inventory and make it really easy for all of these different trading partners to be able to tap into it.
Fantastic. Well, Rohan, many thanks. It's been a great conversation and you've given loads of great insights for our audience today. If the folks out there want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yes, you can hit me up on LinkedIn. You can also shoot me an email at Rohan, Rohan, at conduitcommerce.com. Yeah, really appreciate you having me.
Great. Well, look, we'll put all the links in the description after the podcast. And thanks again. And thanks everyone for joining today. And we'll see you on the next edition of the AI Ripple Effect. Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny.
Great.